This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace.
Last year, I went through many different life changes. I needed to take a pause and examine how I was feeling in the inside to better show up for the ones who need me to be my best version of myself.
When you're navigating life's changes, Talkspace can help. Talkspace is the #1 rated online therapy, bringing you professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatry providers that you can access anytime, anywhere.
Living a busy life, navigating a long-distance relationship, becoming a first-step father, Talkspace made all of those journeys possible. I could speak with my therapist in the office. I could speak with my therapist in the comfort of my home. I was never alone.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance, no problem. Now get $80 off your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Well, hello there, and welcome. My name is Stephanie Safarian, and you're listening to episode 593 of Sustainable Minimalists. This is a listener-supported show about intentional and eco-friendly minimalist living. And on today's show, we are talking about newness. One of the biggest lies of modern times is that new is always better. A new phone is always better than the previous edition. A new pair of sunglasses is always better than the pair you wore last summer. The new fitness app is always better than the one you already downloaded. Influencers are promoting the latest trends. Retailers are designing frictionless checkout experiences. This is creating a perfect storm in which we can't help but feel like a new product or a new trend or a new fad is just too good to resist. Our economy runs on us buying copious amounts of new stuff. And that's a problem because instead of improving upon our lives, new things often distract us. They steal our time, they steal our money, they steal our attention, and research finds they even steal our joy and happiness. And it also, of course, goes without saying, but I'll just say it, this constant consumerism is also contributing heavily to our warming planet. Now, there is good news. It is 100% possible to reshape your relationship with new things. It's also possible to break the flow of new things entering your life so you can be more intentional the next time you buy something new. My guest today, his name is Eric Athis. Eric is an editor at the New York Times, and he is also author of the new book coming out September 15th. The book is titled Saying No to New: Why New Things Are Stealing Your Time, Money, and Happiness, and How to Take Back Your Life. Eric, I'm so thrilled to have you on the show. How are you?
I'm great. So great to be here, Stephanie. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for writing a new book all about looking critically at our overconsumptive habits as a society. Before we talk about your book, I want to talk about you. I want to talk about who you are, what you do, and more specifically, how did you get here? It's a bit of a niche topic in this overconsumptive culture that we have.
It is. I am an editor at the New York Times. I live in Brooklyn, New York with my wife and my 2 kids. And this book was really an outgrowth of my own strained relationship with new stuff. I've always been someone who's actually really loved new things and have been drawn to them. And for me, a lot of it was technology and gadgets. I would be someone who, for most of my life, considered that to be part of my lifestyle. I was an early adopter. I would go for the upgrade. I'd go for the latest. I'd go for this shiny new thing. Then I had kids, and that was sort of the first turning point. Any parent knows this. As soon as you have kids, you immediately enter this new consumer market of being a parent consumer. And there are all of these things that are sold to you that you didn't even know existed, but suddenly you want these gadgets and strollers and carriers and all this stuff. And then your kids become targets themselves as consumers. And so you have to start wrestling with that as well and all the toys and things that are sold to them. So that was the first big shift. And then we moved to New York City, and New York City is a place where space is limited. We also have 2 cats and we also have a dog. It's a very packed household. And so that was also a big change in my life where I started to become much more conscious of my environment in my home and the space in my home, but also being a parent and thinking about my attention and where I'm bringing it. The big turning point for me was during the pandemic when we were all trapped in our Brooklyn apartment, trying to pass the time, and businesses are just flooding the marketplace with new products, new things for your home, and new technology to use. And that was really the big moment where I realized that so many of these new things that I'm filling my home with or filling my mind with are sold and advertised as being solutions to life's problems, to make us happier, to make us more productive. And in fact, I started to realize that actually they're creating new problems and they're making my home more cluttered, or they're distracting, or there's a big financial cost. And so I just became very curious about new as the crux of why we consume stuff and what draws us in, the newness of it. And I'm a journalist. And so when a journalist gets curious about something, we're trained to go follow it and understand it and investigate it. And so I did that. I went out and I just combed through hundreds of documents and articles and research papers and books. And I spoke to almost 100 people, experts, neuroscientists, psychologists, philosophers, economists, and experts in persuasion and influence. And I just really, really deep on this topic. But I also spoke to people who are just wrestling with this in their lives, like me, like just trying to understand how people are grappling with new stuff in their lives. And that was the journey that set me on this path to go write this book and what ultimately became Saying No to New.
Eric, your story sounds an awful lot like my story, and my listeners have heard it, I don't know, 1,000,000 times at this point. I'll give everybody the abbreviated, the annotated version. Basically, I was just your average American consumer in my 20s. I went to the mall for fun. I bought stuff because it was marketed to me. I bought because everybody else was. I wanted to look good. I wanted to have the newest. You said you were an early adopter. I wouldn't call myself ever an early adopter, but yeah, I bought stuff all the time. And then I had my first daughter. With the first daughter, you aptly mentioned, came an influx of stuff. We were also living in a tiny apartment in Boston. She needed not only the crib, but also the bassinet and also the rock and play. And she needed not only the educational toys, but also the music toys and the doll. She needed multiple things in multiple categories. And I say need kind of tongue in cheek, because as a parent, you want the kid to have all the great things. You want them to grow up to be the best they can be. And so, we're conditioned in this society to buy the stuff to make that happen. But it was very soon into my parenting journey when I realized that all this stuff, first of all, I had no free time, right? My life was keeping this child alive, which I did not know how to do. And the tiny little slivers of moments of free time that I did have was spent finding places for all this stuff, organizing the stuff, tidying the stuff, putting it away. And that was the moment when I realized that, holy moly, all this stuff is actually creating more problems for me than it's solving. I think that's exactly what you said. And that was like a sliver into, I consider it a new type of consciousness, actually, seeing through the veil that is our overconsumptive culture. Seeing through for a minute, oh, wait, all this stuff I'm being told that all this stuff is going to make my life easier or take away my stress or make me prettier or make my kids smarter or this or that or the other thing, whatever the promise is of the thing. It's all just marketing. None of it is necessarily true. So that's a long way of saying, yeah, I feel you, I hear you. And what I really liked about your book is how you mentioned there are 3 truths to newness. And these truths are not necessarily things that we are hearing in the advertisements for the new thing. So tell us, what are your 3 truths to newness?
This was the beginning of my investigation into this topic. And my feeling was, if we really want to start to change the relationship with the new stuff in our lives, we should really understand the thing at the center of it, which is this force, this newness, novelty. And so I just went really deep on novelty. And truth number 1 is that newness defines us. And this is one of those things that's really mind-blowing, that is right in front of us. And obvious, but we don't think about, which is that everything we are today, our lives, our existence, everything started as new. At one point, everything we know how to do was once new. All of the experiences that we've experienced were once new. So newness is really this essential human feature. And to understand this, I spoke to a neuroscientist at Stanford his name is David Eagleman. And he has a really interesting way of talking about this, where he says, our brains are locked in silence and darkness. And so our brains have to create an internal model, an understanding of the external world. And one of the ways it does this is by training its attention on the new stuff and then tagging that as a memory. So, okay, I've never seen that before. I've seen it. That's interesting. All right, now I have it. Now I know it. And it becomes familiar. And the more new things we see, the more familiar things that we know. Anyone can relate to seeing a toddler taking a stroll around the block, and they're wide-eyed and everything is interesting around them. Kind of miss, my boys are 10 and 12 now. And so they're past this phase. It's a really cool thing to see because the fire engine rolls by and there's so much excitement in the birds and the trees and everything. This is because so much to them is new. They haven't experienced all of this as much as us adults have. And so their brain is working hard to tag all of these new memories and make them familiar. And then over time, all of these new things become more familiar. And so what this kind of comes down to is that our brains care more about the new stuff than they do about the familiar stuff, because they adopt the familiar stuff. They can predict that. They know that's going to be there. So they need to focus on the new things. There's a great book. It's called Look Again by Tali Sherritt and Cass Sunstein. And the way they describe this is a concept known as habituation. The way that they describe this is that the brain is like the front page of a newspaper. It really only cares about what's changed. So that's the first truth, is that newness is really this essential human feature, and our brains pay attention to new things, which leads us to the second truth, which is that humans are drawn to new things. So not only does the brain care more about what's changed, but actually there have been studies done that show when we come across something new, we actually get a little shot of dopamine that says, go check that out, go explore that, go get that. And this is an evolutionary instinct. You can just imagine our ancestors. It was really important for them to pay attention to new noises and sights and sounds and to find new food and to explore new lands. So we still operate that way, except the difference today is there are new things everywhere. And so we're drawn to all of these new things that come to us. And this is the central driving force behind why we want to upgrade to the new phone or go out and get the latest line of clothing from our favorite brand or the latest bag or whatever it might be, is because our brains are actually driving us to go explore new stuff. But there's a certain type of new that is particularly compelling to us. And this gets to our third truth about newness, which is that new and familiar are complementary. And what I mean by this is studies have shown that, okay, so we already know old boring stuff, our brains care less about that, and we're just not as interested in that. But on the other end of the spectrum, very novel, very new stuff that we're extremely unfamiliar with is also uninteresting to us because it's too new. It's too outside of our understanding of how things work. But a new thing wrapped in a comfortable setting is particularly compelling and enticing to us. So to give you an example, you have a sweater. I've had this sweater I have on now for years and years. I don't think twice about it. It's just there. So it's on the boring end of the spectrum. But a sweater that's from a store I've never heard of, that has all these styles and colors that are totally different from what I'd usually wear, that's too novel for me. But a new style from a store that I'm familiar with, that I know, that's the sweet spot. And so once you start to understand this third truth, it's really fun because you can start to see how businesses leverage it. So this is why you see a potato chip company, and they're constantly churning out new flavors, and they're taking this familiar thing, the potato chip, and they're putting all these twists on it. It's why every season you see a clothing brand is going to come out with a new line of clothing. You see the tech upgrades. It's that way they're taking this thing that we know, that we're familiar with, but they know if they don't keep putting these novel twists on it, it's going to become boring to us. So those are the three truths. Newness defines us. Humans are drawn to new things, and new and familiar are complementary.
As you're talking there, Eric, I'm thinking about how expert marketers have known these truths for however many decades, and they blatantly exploit them to get us to buy new stuff. But I'm also thinking about how you use the sweater example. New sweater or a new style sweater from your favorite store is still at the end of the day just a sweater. Like, it's not really all that new. Or I think in your book, you use the example of a car. Side story. My husband and I bought a new car 6 months ago, and it can do some crazy things because our car previous to that was like 15 years old. So things have come a long way in 15 years. But my point is, like, at the end of the day, it's still four wheels. It's still just a car. So, we humans have big brains. Why can we not see that a sweater at the end of the day is still a sweater, no matter how much it's dressed up, and a car is still a vehicle, no matter how many bells and whistles are added to it?
Yeah, this is how our brains work, is that we naturally become bored with the unfamiliar. And so these businesses work very hard to put new twists on old things, and they're very good at it. Another example, which is probably more of a harmless example, but it's a fun example and a good way to illustrate it, is you notice how there's a lot of sequels and reboots these days. Most of the all-time box office hits are sequels or reboots. And this is a great example of how we like the familiar storylines, the familiar characters, but we're most interested if there's new actors, new twists, new sort of extensions of a story. And so you're absolutely right that this is no secret to businesses. And like I said, the next time you go out to a store, you can start to see this everywhere, where the cereals that you buy or the food that you buy, or go to a retailer's website and you're going to see this in action. You're going to see some of these novel products, but they're packaged and presented to you in a way that has this familiar sense to them.
I think that those three truths in that order, I think they're really going to help a lot of people, right? Who see a similar, slightly different thing at the supermarket or at the store or wherever and think, oh, I need that. I need to try it. But the way you phrase it is, it's really just the same thing.
Yeah.
So with a slight twist. I think that's going to help a lot of people who struggle with overconsumption. And that leads me into the problems with buying into newness, both literally and figuratively, right? Like, if buying new stuff all the time was benign, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You wouldn't have written this book. Parents all around the country wouldn't be overwhelmed and stressed, right? We'd all have a lot more money and our planet would be in a much better place. So there are plenty of problems to buying new stuff. What are they? Why is it a problem that we're buying all this new stuff?
I really try in the book to make this concept applicable to anyone who reads it. So the idea behind diversion, a diversion is anytime you encounter a new thing out there in the world that is going to pull you away from things that matter, things you value, and have some cost to your life. And so in the book, I list off diversions, and they are opportunity, time, attention, enjoyment, and happiness. So there's 5 of them. Opportunity is essentially money. If you buy something now, even for a few bucks, that's a few bucks that you can no longer use on something more meaningful in the future. So that's opportunity. And I think where we really get caught up, something like a car, that's a pretty big purchase. You put a lot of thought into it. Where this really gets us is in the small little diversions that happen throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the year, throughout your lifetime, where you're spending a little money here, and suddenly that's added up to a lot of opportunity that you've used on meaningless new things that you can no longer use on meaningful. So that's opportunity. Time, in a similar sense, the time you spend on something new that does not align with your values, that isn't meaningful to you, is time you can no longer spend on something that is meaningful. And this can be in the digital world. And in the book, I interviewed someone who got addicted to an AI chatbot. And so he was spending all of his time with this new chatbot, and it was taking him away from all the stuff that he knew that he wanted to do, like spending time with friends or reading fan fiction. But time can also translate into the built world too. And so I spoke to the people in the book who get trapped in the Home Goods and the Target and the TJ Maxx treasure hunting experience, where you're in there for hours and hours, just wandering the aisles, grabbing stuff that you don't need. So that's time. Attention is when you are drawn away from the things in life that you really value, that you want to spend attention to. And this also, I write a lot in the book about how new things, newness translates into the physical world and the digital world. So attention, of course, in the attention economy, we're constantly pulled into social media, and social media is a gusher of novelty. Anyone who has gone into TikTok or Instagram and just swiped from new video to new video, that is leveraging, by the way, the third truth that newness and familiar are complementary. Your algorithm is built on familiar preferences and topics, but it's feeding you new video and new content, and it's really tapping into that third truth. And it's pulling your attention away. But the other thing about attention is the more stuff that you bring into your home is going to take your attention away as well. So if you're in your home, you have a lot of clutter, you have a lot of things, you're constantly adding things into your home, you're going to have to sort of divide your attention up across all of those physical things as well. Or as you mentioned earlier, when you're going to have to sort of tend to these things that you brought into your home, that's also going to divert your attention away from things you want to do, like spending time with family or hobbies or whatever. So that's attention. Enjoyment is one that I think when you think about, we get a new thing today, it's so easy to quickly put it down and go and find the next new thing. Because there are so many new things that we can choose from today, it's almost like we're constantly hungry for novelty, but we're at this all-you-can-eat buffet that never closes. And so we'll have a meal of something new that we get, and we're hungry right again, and we're off, and we're not taking a minute to really savor the stuff that we do get or that we do already have. And so that's enjoyment. And I use in the book, and I reference examples like viral trends that we're off, we're just racing to one trend to the next. And because they're viral, because it's the next new thing, and not really sitting and enjoying the things that we have. And then finally, happiness. And this, of course, is a big one. This is one where it's really at the center of the marketing tactics that are used to get us to buy new things. So many things are sold on this premise that they're going to make you happier. But in fact, they actually oftentimes do the opposite. And I spoke to Laurie Santos, who's an expert on happiness at Yale University. And Laurie kicked through all of these different ways in which our quest, our hunt, our hunger for new things actually diverts us away from happiness and away from the components of life that make us happy. And to give you one example is gratitude. Gratitude has been shown through science to improve our well-being. When we look at what we have today, right in this moment, it actually improves our well-being. It makes us happier. And new things, our quest for newness is all about looking past those, but the things we don't.
If you felt stuck trying to lose weight, you're not alone. Enter Weight Loss by Hers. It's designed to support you in reaching your goals. And Hers now offers access to an affordable range of FDA-approved GLP-1 medications, including the Wegovy pill and the Wegovy pen. With Wegovy through Hers, lose up to 20% or more of your body weight when combined with diet and exercise. It helps you regulate your appetite, eat less, and keep weight off. Plus, Wegovy is the first ever GLP-1 pill for weight loss, so there are no needles needed. Everything is 100% online through Hers. You'll connect with a licensed provider who'll determine if treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your medication is delivered right to your door. No insurance necessary. Ready to reach your goals? Visit forhers.com/believe to get personalized, affordable care that gets you. That's forhers.com/BLEAV. Forhers.com/believe. Weight Loss by Hers is not available in all 50 states. Wegovy is the registered trademark of Novo Nordisk AS. To get started and learn more, including important safety information, Wegovy clinical study information, and restrictions, visit forhers.com.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace.
Last year, I went through many different life changes. I needed to take a pause and examine how I was feeling in the inside to better show up for the ones who need me to be my best version of myself.
When you're navigating life's changes, Talkspace can help. Talkspace is the #1 rated online therapy, bringing you professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatry providers that you can access anytime, anywhere.
Living a busy life, navigating a long-distance relationship, becoming a first-step father, Talkspace made all of those journeys possible. I could speak with my therapist in the office. I could speak with my therapist in the comfort of my home. I was never alone.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay, no insurance, no problem. Now get $80 off your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
I was taking so many notes, Eric, as you're talking there, and I'm not sure where I want to go, but I guess I'll latch on to the gratitude piece. I have been on a mission for the last decade through this podcast, through my personal life, to become more of a conscious consumer and buy less, significantly less. One of the greatest benefits from this journey on me personally is that I am so much more grateful for what I have. I'm able to, and I'm not talking about things either. Sure, I'm grateful for things, but I'm much better able now to recognize moments of wonder and just like true moments of happiness and like savor them. I can be fully present in those moments now when they do pop up. I can enjoy them and just like suck the marrow out of them before those moments pass on by. To be honest with you, Eric, I don't even know before if I even recognized that those moments were happening. People have asked me, what's the connection between buying less and feeling more grateful? And I'm not sure if I can verbalize it, but I can say loud and proud that that is probably the best benefit. I mean, yeah, I've saved money. Yeah, I have less clutter and more free time. Sure. But the biggest benefit for me in my personal life is I am so grateful for the little things, the way the sun comes in my window in the morning, the way the birds chirp, the way my daughter still wants to hold my hand as I walk her to the bus stop. Those little beautiful moments, we all have them. We all have those beautiful moments in our lives. But the question is, are we paying attention to them?
Well, what you've done is what you're describing, Stephanie, and what I hope this book can help people do is you've rewired your relationship with the new. In doing so, that is not an easy thing to do because, as I described in the book, this is rooted in how our brains operate. It's how humans have existed for hundreds of thousands of years. And oh, by the way, there are these very powerful forces in the form of marketing and advertising and businesses that are just constantly pulling on us. And we're in this grip of newness. And so once you can start to loosen that grip and rewire your relationship with novelty, then you can start to see some of those things that are right in front of you that can bring you that enjoyment, that can bring you that happiness. Oh, and by the way, you can also start to recognize the new things that really are useful and that really are valuable.
Yeah. You mentioned too, we are conditioned from birth essentially to chase the next racing. I think you said racing from one thing to the next. Shareholders, CEOs love it when we race from one new thing to the next. And as you said that, you used the verb racing. I thought that was very interesting because racing is exhausting. Right. Racing anywhere, anytime in life is exhausting. So it should be no surprise to anyone that if we are consciously or unconsciously more likely racing from one thing to the next, our attention is going to be affected. Yes, our enjoyment of this one true and precious life will be affected. Yes, our happiness will be affected as well. I thought it was very interesting that you used those words, and I think it behooves all of us to think about the way in which the race to get the newest, the greatest, the shiniest, the coolest is impacting some of the more important aspects of our lives. And to that point, Eric, I think you're the right guest to talk about something that's been on my mind for a while. I've been thinking a lot lately about the connection between consumerism, overconsumption, essentially, because we're all consumers. We all need to consume stuff. I'm talking about overconsumption. The connection between overconsumption and just shallowness on a societal level. We are taught to orient ourselves around how much we have, how expensive it is, how much we make, the brand of car we drive. And when we're orienting ourselves and our place in the world around those things, we're not orienting ourselves around who we are, how we treat each other, what we're doing to make the world a better place. And so on a cultural level, everything, interpersonal relationships especially, is reduced to like this shallow, one-dimensional way of looking at each other. You didn't mention that as one of our diversions, one of our problems, but I'm just wondering there, do you have any thoughts?
I have thoughts, and that's real. And of course, I'm going to bring it back to the science and the research, because you've just hit on something, Stephanie, that is absolutely true. There's a researcher, his name is Russell Belk. Years ago, he did this fascinating study called the extended self. And what he describes is that possessions very quickly, very early on in life, become extensions of ourselves. Kids start to see their relationship between themselves, their body, and the stuff that they hold in their hands. And this continues throughout our lives. And in his research, Russell Belk's research, he didn't necessarily frame this as a bad thing. And that's partially because he did this research many years ago. But you can see how that can get out of hand very quickly if you start to tie your identity, yourself, to your possessions. And one of the studies that he referenced in this research paper is one in which they actually had people rank the things in their lives, the objects in their lives that they care about. And they rated them. Everything from your own body to your skin to your ideas to your furniture to your stuff you own, material goods. And things, stuff, possessions was fourth on the list. And it actually beat other people and it beat ideas. So our possessions matter to this particular group that was in the study, mattered more to other people and our own ideas. So you can see how powerful this connection is to ourselves and our possessions. Where this gets us into trouble, fast forward from Dr. Belk's research many years ago to today, where it is so easy to acquire new stuff. And this ties into another concept in which if we're connecting ourselves and our well-being and our identity to our possessions, if we're starting to feel a little bit bad about ourselves, what's one way that we can start to lift ourselves up? We can hang on to that connection and get some more possessions, because that's going to boost our identity. It's going to boost our standing in society. And this is something that I described in the book, a reference from a study that described it as this spiral of consumption. So it goes like this. You are feeling a little bit bad because maybe you're not making enough money, or you're feeling bad about your financial situation. A really easy way to boost your standing in society and our culture is to get an expensive new thing. And by the way, the more expensive it is, the more luxurious it is, the more it's going to boost our self-worth. What happens when you do that? It pushes you down into an even lower socioeconomic standing. And especially if you're going to accumulate debt. How do you lift yourself out of that? You got to go buy more possessions, and the more expensive, the better. And it creates this vicious cycle where if we tie ourselves too closely to the things in our lives and make that our identity, we can get caught in this spiral.
I love that. Thank you for saying all of that. I have listeners who are probably listening to us talk right now, and they're thinking, oh, not me. That would never be me. But it's all of us, right? It's what everybody else is doing. It's what we're told to do. If we want to be a person in America in 2026, we're doing it. And so it's so hard to extract ourselves from the dominant, I'm going to use the big word paradigm there, but I think that's what it is, right? I think it's a David Foster Wallace analogy where he says, if you're a fish and you're swimming in water, you don't know that you're swimming in water. You're just a fish in your environment. And so for all of us, we don't know that this is crazy overconsumption that's harming our life. We're just doing what everybody else is doing. It takes a lot to see the water, in this case, for what the water actually is. For people who are starting to see the water, who are starting to see what we're swimming in, what are the first steps for backing away from overconsumption? And again, knowing that it's pervasive, it's everywhere. Like, how can you even back away from something that you're swimming in?
I love the water and the swimming metaphor because it's so true. And in fact, the water, I think in this instance, as we were talking about earlier, just understanding our own relationship with newness is a really important one. And that's why I spend so much time thinking and talking and digging into that, because you start to look at the world around you a little bit differently when you look through this lens of, okay, I know I really love new things. I know my brain is programmed to do that. So what is happening over here? I see this product, I see this advertisement, I see this new entertainment. Do I really want that? Or is that just my biological innate preference for the new? So that's a foundation. But the more actionable thing, the number one thing that you would want to start with is to really understand your values and what matters in your life. And we talked about diversion. To know if something is diverting you from your values, you have to really deeply understand your values. And I call this in the book, I call this the Iron Man method. And I call it the Iron Man method because if anyone's seen the Iron Man movies, Iron Man is the superhero with all of these gadgets and gizmos and this technology that's increasingly sophisticated and changing from movie to movie. He's got all these actions. So Iron Man is the embodiment of novelty and new, but he has this glowing thing in his chest called the arc reactor, which is keeping him alive and which is powering him. That doesn't change. That's constant. So everything is changing around him, but he's got that arc reactor. So I like to think about our values in our lives and the things that we care about as our own arc reactor, that as things change around us, that we can stay true to those things. And you hear a lot about values, particularly in books and podcasts and articles and everything. And there is a reason for that. It's a way for you to understand yourself and what matters. The challenge here, and I talked to a philosopher, her name is Valerie Tiberis at the University of Minnesota, and she has something called the value fulfillment theory, which essentially says, look, if you want to lead a good life, you have to really unpack your values and understand what they mean for you. And what she means by that is, if you have a value like joy, I value joy in my life. That's a great value. But if you don't unpack that, that can lead you astray. It's almost like you're punching north into a GPS. You're going to get generally in the right direction, but you're probably not going to end up in the place that you want to go. So joy, if you just say, I want joy, is going and doom scrolling for a few hours joyful. It may feel joyful at times, but in retrospect, you look back and be like, oh, that wasn't joyful. That was a waste of my time and I feel awful afterwards. So unpacking it, what does joy mean for you? And so the very first step, the thing that you can do, and there's a science behind this, just writing down the things that matter to you in your life, just writing them down will start to change your behavior. And I did this for myself. Mine is financial health and making sure I'm conscious of the things that I'm buying and I'm putting money in savings and thinking about how I'm spending money and what I'm saving and just really detailing it. It doesn't have to be exhaustive, but getting it on paper is the first thing you can do, because then you can draw from that as you go and you navigate the world. You can, okay, I want to get this new thing. I want to consume this new thing. Does this align with the various things that I wrote down? And so that ties into the value fulfillment theory, which is that you really understand what matters to you in life. You can then use that to navigate this onslaught of new things that we live in today.
I like that, Eric. And I like it so much, I'm going to push back.
Please.
To my previous point, in which I feel as though overconsumption on a societal level is pushing most of us to value non-values, essentially. Value looks, value status, value the amount of money you make a year, or your assets, or how many homes you have, or if you have a boat, or whatever the thing is. I always talk about boats like that's a thing. I don't know if it is. But I feel like it's a slow dumbing down drip of values in which perhaps our children, that is what they're going to value. They are going to value their looks as prime. And they are going to value their status in terms of how much money they're making per year. They are going to value these things that, in my personal opinion, are just fabricated. They're not real. They're not where we should put our time. And so I hear you, and I think it's a great suggestion. Everybody go get serious about your values. But for the next generation, I do wonder whether we've taught them to value the wrong things.
It's a great point. And I think having conversations with your young ones about this is really important. I deal with that. It's not easy because, to your point, Stephanie, young people are very impressionable. They're living in this world that very unfamiliar to me when I was a kid, that they're constantly getting sold stuff and they're much more susceptible to persuasion and influence. And so we as parents have to educate them in a way that sort of gives them the tools to also navigate this world. And that doesn't mean that's going to be easier. They're going to listen to everything you say. But if you can do it in action and apply some of the things that we're talking about here in action in the moment, and I know I deal with this a lot of times when one of my kids wants to buy something, and I use this as a way to slow it down a little bit, to talk about it, to think about, okay, do we really want this? Is this something maybe you just want because it's been advertised in a certain way? And just slowing down is a tool in the toolkit and something that marketers, businesses don't want us to be doing. They want quick decisions. So slowing down, having these conversations, doing it in the moment is a really important way to help our kids start to see this world of constant newness and consumption and hopefully acquire their own tools.
Yes. And so on that vein, Eric, one final question for you. Through writing this book, have you changed anything with regard to your consumption habits? And if so, what's changed?
Yeah, the experience of writing this book and doing all this research has truly changed my life. It starts with what you just described, which is I just navigate the world differently. Like I see through a lot of the attempts to influence me. And that's something I spent some time in the book, which is just knowledge about how we're influenced and persuaded. A lot of it's invisible, but if we can make it more visible and understand it, that has been eye-opening for me because I can start to see some of the tactics that are at play. I mentioned another big thing that has changed is I'm handling sort of the interest and allure of new things a little bit differently. And the big one is just adding some more time into that decision-making process. Social media, like I said, those platforms are gushers of novelty. And so I still have social media, but I sign out of my accounts on my desktop. I try to not use it much. And that's a big difference. That just exposes me to less novelty, both in the form of novel content and sort of people selling me new things. But the really surprising effect of saying no to new more often is that now I have a better understanding of the types of new things that actually are valuable. And this is something I really try to make clear, is that saying no to new does not mean saying no to all new things. It means saying no to the ones that are not going to align with your values, that are not going to be useful, not going to bring utility. But if you can do that, you can start to see when something truly is useful and truly is valuable. And you can start to find novelty in unexpected, familiar places. And so I write about in the book this idea of the right kind of new. And there is a lot of right kind of new, a lot of the new experiences that are the reasons why our brains are programmed this way. And so it's very simple. It's just paying attention to the world around you and finding novelty in hidden places. I was on the train to work yesterday and it stopped for, 60 seconds or a couple minutes on the Brooklyn Bridge. And it was the Manhattan Bridge, actually. And just off is a train delay. And I could easily at that moment pull my phone out and try to feed this boring moment with some novelty. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to turn, I'm going to look out the window. And there's just a beautiful scene. The water is glistening. There's boats, there's bicyclists going by. That's novelty. We don't think of it because I go over that bridge twice a day, but that's something new. And so I'm getting this fix for novelty in a way that is actually useful for my well-being and for my brain health and all of those good things.
I love it. Yeah. And I'm sure you extracted much more from looking out the window, perhaps letting your mind wander for a minute than you did by consuming somebody else's content and making Zuckerberg, let's say, a little bit richer by giving your attention to the screen. So thank you so much for writing this book. I really enjoyed it. Tell us your new book. It's called Saying No to New: Why New Things Are Stealing Your Time, Money, and Happiness, and How to Take Back Your Life. It releases on September 15th. Tell us all the things, where we can find it. Can we pre-order it? Let us know.
You can find this book wherever you buy your books. You can pre-order it today. If you want more information or links to how to pre-order, you can go to, I made this very easy, just sayingnotonew.com. And you can find all the places and learn more about the book there. And then, like you said, the book comes out September 15th.
Awesome. You're on the journey, Eric. You're on the anti-consumption journey. It's a wonderful road. Your next book, you'll have to come back.
Thanks, Stephanie. This has been great. Thanks for having me.
Listeners, that's a wrap. My friend, show notes at mamaminimalist.com/593. Reminder about book club. I've linked to the book that we're reading in the show notes. Our June meeting is slated to take place on Wednesday, June 24th, 7 p.m. If you've emailed me and asked me about book club information, I've received your emails. Thank you. I haven't sent out an email yet, but it's on my agenda to do this week, so be on the lookout for that. I think that's all I have to say today. That's all on my end. We'll be back next week. I'll see you then. Reach out if you need me, and take care.
Hey, sweetie, your mother showed me this Carvana thing for selling the car. I'm going to give it a try. Wish me luck. Me again. I put in the license plate. It gave me an offer. Unbelievable. Okay, I accepted the offer. They're picking it up Tuesday from the driveway. I haven't even left my chair. It's done. The car is gone. I'm holding a check. Anyway, Carvana, give it a whirl. Love ya.
So good, you'll want to leave a voicemail about it. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.